The flames were rising fast. I heard the crackling from my driveway, dashed out of my front door in a panic, and saw something that made my heart stop. My son's wheelchair ramp was on fire. Not just smoking, on fire. Flames danced wildly up the wooden rails, the plastic guardrails melted into sticky black puddles, and the air was thick with choking smoke. I could barely see through it. But what made me freeze in my tracks wasn't just the fire. It was her. Karen. The woman from the HOA who had made our lives miserable since the day we moved in. She was standing there at the edge of my yard, arms crossed, smirking. Like she had done something noble. Like she expected a thank you. And then she said the one thing that made my blood boil. Maybe now you'll move that ugly thing off your porch. She didn't know, I'm a federal fire inspector. And this wasn't just property damage. This was a federal crime. But I didn't say a word. I just stared at her as I pulled out my phone and pressed record. 3 weeks earlier, we had just moved to a quiet suburban neighborhood in northern Idaho, white picket fences, dog parks, and lots of smiling faces. My wife Lisa and I thought it would be perfect for our son, Billy, who had recently started using a wheelchair after a spinal condition made it hard for him to walk. Billy's 12, sharp as a tack and obsessed with fire trucks, probably because of my job. I've worked as a federal fire inspector for over 17 years, and I've seen just about every kind of fire hazard known to man. But nothing could have prepared me for HOA Karen. It started on move-in day. We had barely finished unloading the boxes when a tall blonde woman in tight beige slacks and a bright red cardigan stomped up our driveway holding a clipboard like it was a sword. Hi. I'm Karen Meadows, president of the Oak Ridge HOA. She didn't smile. She didn't even look at Billy, who was sitting in his chair holding a toy fire truck. I need to inform you that any permanent structures added to the exterior of your home must be approved in writing. Lisa glanced at me and then smiled politely. Oh, you mean the ramp? That's temporary for now, but yes, we're happy to submit anything you need. Karen frowned. Even temporary structures must follow our guidelines. That ramp is an eyesore. Lisa's face turned red. It's for our son. He can't access the front door without it. Karen didn't blink. We have standards in this community. That ramp lowers property values. I stepped in, keeping calm. Ma'am, the ramp is up to ADA standards and we're well within federal compliance. But if you'd like our paperwork, we're happy to submit it. She blinked at the word federal but didn't ask more. She just scribbled something down on her clipboard, turned sharply, and marched away like she was issuing marching orders at a parade. We laughed it off that day, thinking she was just one of those overly eager HOA types who liked control. We had no idea how far she'd go. The next week we got our first HOA violation notice. It said the ramp was a nuisance and must be removed or replaced with aesthetic materials approved by the HOA. Lisa was fuming. It's not like we use scrap metal and duct tape. It's a clean wooden ramp with a non-slip surface and safety rails. I contacted the HOA. No one returned my calls. But the letters kept coming. One even said, failure to comply may result in daily fines and legal escalation. That's when I started keeping track. Photos, emails, voice recordings. Because something in my gut told me this woman wasn't just annoying, she was dangerous. A few days later, while I was at work, Billy had a therapy appointment in town. Lisa backed the car out of the driveway while Billy waited at the base of the ramp. When they returned, Billy asked, why was the lady with the red sweater taking pictures of our ramp? Lisa's stomach dropped. She asked Billy to describe exactly what happened. He said Karen walked right up onto the porch, pointed her phone at the ramp, and muttered something like, let's see what this looks like on Facebook. We filed a complaint with the HOA. No response. But the next day, a new sign appeared on our front yard. Unapproved modification. Subject to removal. It looked official, black letters on a yellow background. But it wasn't from the city. It wasn't from the fire department. It was homemade. And we caught it on our Ring camera, Karen walking up, hammering the sign into the ground, and then looking around like she was proud of herself. That night, I reviewed the footage and emailed it to the city's zoning department and copied our family lawyer. I also added it to my evidence folder. Because something was building. And I was ready. Billy tried to stay positive. He even painted a little welcome sign to hang on the ramp, with red and blue fire trucks drawn across the top. I noticed Karen staring at it from across the street the next morning. She wasn't smiling. That same day, someone threw a rotten tomato at the ramp. 2 days later, a dead squirrel was left right on the platform. And 3 nights after that, I woke up to a faint smoky smell, but when I looked around, I couldn't find anything. Then came the final straw. It was a sunny Saturday morning. I was inside brewing coffee when I heard Billy screaming from the porch. "Dad! Fire! Dad, it's on fire!" I ran out and there it was, the ramp engulfed in flames. Smoke pouring out like a chimney. The plastic from the rails dripping off. The wooden beams crackling like kindling. And Billy was at the bottom of the steps, pointing. It was her. Karen. She walked away just now. I saw her light something and throw it. I turned, and sure enough, across the street, Karen was standing there, arms folded, with a smug look on her face like she just won something. I didn't yell. I didn't run over. I pulled out my phone and pressed record. And in my calmest voice I said, "You just set fire to a disabled child's ramp, Karen. And you did it in front of a federal fire inspector." Her eyes widened, but she didn't run. She smiled. "Prove it." And that's when the fire truck turned the corner. The fire truck pulled up so fast the tires screeched. Billy was crying by the bushes, Lisa ran out barefoot in her nightgown, and smoke still curled up from the charred remains of our wooden ramp. But Karen? Karen just stood there with her arms crossed like it was her lawn that had been set on fire. The lead firefighter, Captain Miller, jumped out before the truck fully stopped. He looked at me, then at the ramp. "Mark? You all right?" "Mark. That's me. Mark Henson. Federal Fire Inspector." Captain Miller and I had worked together years ago investigating arson cases in Idaho. We weren't best friends, but we knew each other. I pointed to the smoldering ramp. "We've got a suspected arson. That woman across the street might be involved." Miller's expression changed. He looked over his shoulder. Karen quickly turned around and began walking away like she had errands to run. "Is that the HOA president?" he asked. I nodded. "Caught her on video. Billy saw her throw something." Lisa pulled Billy into her arms while firefighters doused the last embers. I opened the side garage and brought out the portable oxygen tank. We always kept one ready for Billy just in case. The smoke had made his chest tight, and he wheezed as Lisa comforted him. That's when Miller asked, "You want me to call this in as a federal escalation?" I stared at the wreckage. "Not yet. But we're filing the report. This was intentional." Later that day, I uploaded all the footage. Karen near the scene, the Ring camera showing her sneaking up to the ramp a night before, her previous threats, even the tomato and the squirrel incidents. But here's where things got strange. I called the HOA number again. This time someone answered. "Oak Ridge HOA, this is Judy." I calmly asked for Karen Meadows. Judy paused. "Oh, Karen isn't officially part of the board anymore. She was voted out 6 months ago." My grip on the phone tightened. "Wait, what?" "Yeah, she keeps showing up to meetings. Claims she still runs things, but we asked her to step down after she started getting erratic." "So she's not the HOA president?" "No, sir." "Then why has she been writing violation letters and putting up signs?" "We didn't know she was doing that." "That's not from us." That night I printed everything. Emails, screenshots, photos. And I called our lawyer, Evan Sims. Evan met with us that Sunday morning. Sharp suit, slicked hair, and a briefcase that looked like it weighed more than Billy's wheelchair. He reviewed everything. "This isn't just a harassment case anymore," he said. "This is assault. Endangering a minor. And if we prove it's arson, she could face prison." Lisa gasped. Billy just looked confused. "Is she going to jail?" Evan crouched beside him and said, "We'll do everything to make sure she doesn't hurt anyone ever again, okay?" Billy nodded. Then Evan stood and turned to me. "But here's the thing, Mark. She's not acting alone." I raised a brow. "What do you mean?" "These notices? The signs? The fact that she had the confidence to act like she still runs the HOA? She has support, or at least she thinks she does." That changed everything. The next morning we started hearing whispers. Our neighbor Bob came by while I was fixing the porch railings. He leaned in. "Hey, I heard what happened. People are talking." "Talking?" I asked. "Karen said you set the fire yourself. To make her look bad." I froze. "She's telling people you faked the whole thing. That the ramp was old and you wanted money from insurance." The nerve. "Bob, you've known us since we moved in. Do you believe that?" Bob looked torn. "Of course not. But you know how this neighborhood is. Rumors spread fast. People believe what they want to believe." And it got worse. 2 days later, someone posted a photo of the burned ramp on the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, "False flag setup? We don't know the whole story." The comments poured in. Didn't that guy work with the government? Wouldn't be the first time they fake stuff. That ramp was always an eyesore. Maybe karma got it. Karen's intense, but she's not evil. Maybe the fire just happened? I watched my own neighbors tear my family apart, online. But Lisa had had enough. You need to fight back, Mark. I'm already pressing charges. No. I mean publicly. You've got the evidence. You've got the badge. It's time you reminded them exactly who you are. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I put on my federal inspector's uniform, badge, jacket and all. And I walked right into the next HOA meeting. It was being held at the community clubhouse. Neighbors filled the folding chairs, sipping coffee and munching donuts. The new HOA board president, a nervous guy named Todd, was just opening the meeting when I walked in. All eyes turned to me. And then they turned to her, Karen, sitting in the front row like she was queen of the room. I stepped up to the podium, cleared my throat and said, "Before you start today's agenda, I'd like to introduce myself to everyone, again." Karen rolled her eyes. "Most of you know me as Mark, the new guy on Redwood Lane. But what you don't know is that I'm also a federal fire inspector." A hush fell across the room. I held up a printed still of Karen standing at the edge of my lawn during the fire. 3 days ago, my son's wheelchair ramp was set on fire. He's 12 years old. He has a disability. That ramp was his freedom. People shifted uncomfortably. And I have evidence showing this woman, Karen Meadows, at the scene, immediately before the blaze and harassing us for weeks prior. Karen stood up. "This is outrageous. You're trying to make me a villain." I ignored her. "I've submitted the footage to both local police and federal agencies. I'm here to tell you that anyone defending this woman, anyone complicit in her lies, will be investigated." Todd looked like he wanted to crawl under a chair. Karen exploded. "This is defamation. I didn't do anything wrong. You can't prove a thing." And then, without warning, she reached into her purse and pulled something out. Everyone gasped. It was a lighter. A small pink lighter with a cartoon cat on it. She waved it in the air. This is what you're afraid of? You think this little thing started a fire?" The room went dead silent. I locked eyes with her. "No, Karen. I'm not afraid of that. I'm afraid of you." And then I stepped back, letting the board decide what to do. Outside, Lisa was waiting in the car with Billy. I got in, heart still pounding. "Did it work?" she asked. I looked at Billy through the rearview mirror. He smiled and gave me a thumbs up. "Not sure yet," I said. "But it's not over." Because what I didn't know was this. That night, someone would throw a brick through our front window. And attached to it was a note that read, "You should have stayed quiet." Glass flew across the living room like raindrops. Lisa screamed. Billy jumped. The lamp on the side table shattered, and my heart nearly burst out of my chest. I sprinted toward the front of the house, only to find a brick lying on the floor beside a trail of broken glass. Tied around it with a rubber band was a dirty piece of paper, scribbled in thick black marker. "You should have stayed quiet." Lisa ran to grab Billy from the hallway. His face was pale, and he held tightly to his stuffed Dalmatian, the one he always hugged during storms. I called 911 immediately. The police arrived in less than 5 minutes. 2 patrol cars, flashlights out, asking questions. I handed them the note. They dusted the brick for fingerprints, bagged it as evidence, and told us what we already knew. "Looks like someone's trying to intimidate you." "No kidding," I muttered. Lisa pulled the officer aside. "Do you think Karen's behind this?" He shrugged. "Hard to say. She's certainly got motive, but without clear video or eyewitnesses. It's just suspicion." But I wasn't waiting for anyone else to act. Not anymore. The next morning I was at the police station by 6 a.m. I handed the officer the text and the photo. "I need a trace on this number. This isn't harassment anymore. This is stalking. This is endangering a minor." The officer took the report but said the number was likely a burner. "Might be hard to trace," he said. I pushed harder. "Then let's subpoena nearby security footage from the school. Someone stood outside that building with a camera. Someone left a trail." He promised to escalate it to a detective. Meanwhile, I made calls to the school. They tightened security immediately. Billy was moved to an indoor classroom, and a staff member was assigned to escort him to and from class. Lisa, on the other hand, was barely holding it together. She didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, eyes red, clutching the baseball bat we kept in the laundry room. "If they come near my baby again, I swear." I hugged her close. "They won't. Not after what I've planned." Because I was done playing nice. You see, I've spent nearly 2 decades training other inspectors and reviewing fire incident patterns across the country. But I also know how to read people. Karen wasn't clever, she was desperate. And desperation leaves footprints. So I made some calls. Then I set a trap. I called my buddy Rob from the state's cyber division. Can you help me smoke out whoever's behind that message? I asked. Absolutely. But we're gonna need bait. Perfect. I had an idea. That weekend, I posted something on the neighborhood Facebook group. A simple post. Innocent looking. Big thanks to everyone who's been checking on Billy. Installing a new steel wheelchair ramp next week. Hidden cameras and a GPS alert system too. Should keep him safe. That was the post. The trap. But here's the twist. There was no new ramp. Instead, I placed motion-triggered cameras at the front porch and a GPS tracker inside a decoy box marked Disability Ramp Kit. Do not open. The bait was live. Now all I had to do was wait. 4 nights later, just past midnight, my phone buzzed. Alert. Movement detected on front porch. I jumped out of bed, heart pounding, and pulled up the camera feed. There she was. Karen. Red jacket. But up. Same little cat logo on the sleeve. She had a flashlight in one hand, and a canister in the other. Lisa. It's happening. Call the police, now. But Karen didn't spray anything this time. She opened the decoy box. Boom. A flash went off, non-lethal, just light and sound, built to disorient. Karen screamed and dropped everything. The porch lights blazed on. She stumbled back, and 2 patrol cars pulled up before she could even reach the sidewalk. I stepped outside in my robe holding my badge. She just tried to tamper with disability equipment. Again. Karen screamed at the officers. He set me up. He knew I'd come. That's entrapment. He's targeting me. The younger officer looked confused. The older one just said, "Ma'am, you're under arrest for trespassing, vandalism, and harassment of a minor. You have the right to remain silent." And they cuffed her. Right there on the front lawn. In front of half the neighborhood. But it didn't stop there. The next day, I walked into the HOA clubhouse with a folder in my hand. The Real HOA board was meeting. Todd, the nervous new president, looked up. "Mark, we heard about last night. I figured you did. That's why I brought this." I dropped the folder on the table. It landed with a heavy thump. Inside, surveillance photos. Ring footage. Her fake HOA notices. The forged warning sign. The arson report. The brick and threatening letter. I leaned in and said, "This is a pattern. This woman didn't just act alone. She did it because she thought your silence would protect her." Todd swallowed hard. "What do you want us to do?" I looked around the room. "I want this HOA to issue a formal apology to my family publicly. I want Karen's supporters removed from any decision-making positions. And I want a resolution that no family will ever be harassed for having disability access again." The room was quiet. Then one woman stood up. "Mrs. Granger, head of neighborhood safety." "Mom, I support everything he just said." One by one the others agreed. Even Todd. "Done. Let's vote on it now." We went home that evening feeling like something had finally shifted. Karen had been booked. Her lawyer was silent. Her Pride of Oak Ridge crew? Nowhere to be found. They had vanished like cowards once the truth was exposed. Lisa and I started rebuilding the ramp that weekend, this time with help. Bob, our neighbor, came by with tools. Mr. Peterson showed up with supplies. Even teenagers from the local high school helped stain the wood and install solar lights. Billy beamed the whole time. "This ramp is way cooler than the last one," he said. I smiled. "Yeah. And this one's battle-tested." But just when things started to feel safe again. A black SUV parked across the street. Not a police car. Not a neighbor's vehicle. It didn't move for hours. That night I checked the footage. Someone got out of that SUV around 3 a.m. and walked to the edge of our lawn. The next morning we found something stuck to our mailbox. A new letter. Karen was just the beginning. The letter on the mailbox didn't have an envelope. It was just a folded piece of thick paper, taped neatly, almost politely. But the message inside was anything but polite. "Karen was just the beginning. You made a mistake. Stop now or lose more than just a ramp." No signature. No name. No smudge of fingerprints either. I knew it was clean. Too clean. This wasn't written by someone acting on impulse. This was a threat. A planned one. Lisa froze when she read it. "This isn't just Karen's crazy anymore, Mark. Someone else is involved." I nodded. "And they're organized." Later that day I visited the local police again. This time they escalated it to Detective Allen, a no-nonsense guy with salt and pepper hair, always chewing on toothpicks. "You've stirred up something big," he told me. "We're seeing similar HOA issues across the region. Power-hungry boards. Fake fines. Even property sabotage. He handed me a folder. Inside were reports from other neighborhoods, people harassed, fined for imaginary violations and pushed into moving. In one case, a woman was cited for having a blue door. Some of these groups aren't just about HOA power, he said. They're tied to small-time land developers. They pressure families to sell, then flip the homes for profit. I blinked. Are you telling me Karen was working with a developer? We think so. She might have been the face, but someone bigger is pulling the strings. And just like that, the story changed. This wasn't just a grudge. It was a scheme. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the garage, laptop open, scrolling through old HOA records Lisa and I had collected. That's when I noticed something strange. In the last 4 years, 6 families had mysteriously moved out of the neighborhood. All of them received multiple violations before leaving. And 3 of those homes were later sold to the same investment group, Sable Creek Development. I looked up their info. Guess who used to work as a property inspector for Sable Creek before retiring? Karen Meadows. Boom. The next morning I met with Evan, our lawyer, and showed him everything. He whistled. Mark, this just turned from a harassment case into potential real estate fraud. We decided to file a civil lawsuit against Karen, the 3 board members who backed her, and, yes, Sable Creek Development. We had proof of Karen's former ties, her intimidation, and now a pattern of people being forced out. But that meant one thing: things were going to get uglier before they got better. And I was right. 2 days later, someone slashed the tires on my government vehicle. Not just one tire, all 4. They even carved the word rat into the driver's side door. Billy saw it before I did. He looked scared. Lisa rushed him back inside while I called the sheriff. The worst part? The street cameras had been disabled that night. Someone had cut the wires. I stared down the street that morning and I saw something new in the eyes of a few neighbors. Guilt. Shame. And for one man, James, who had always sided with Karen, pure panic. I confronted him while walking our dog. Morning, I said. He flinched. Morning. You know cutting government tires is a federal offense, right? His mouth twitched. I didn't touch your car. I didn't say it was you. He froze. Then he whispered, you're messing with people who don't like to lose. Tell them, I said calmly, neither do I. Later that week, the court served Karen. Lisa and I were there when the papers were delivered. She was in her front yard, trying to act like everything was normal, trimming a bush that didn't even need trimming. The officer handed her the envelope. You've been named in a civil suit regarding harassment, endangerment of a minor, and property destruction. You'll need to appear. She laughed. You think you're going to beat me? You think this court nonsense will stop what's coming? I stepped forward. No, Karen. But truth will. Her eyes narrowed. Sable Creek will eat you alive. You're just a badge with a kid in a chair. I stepped even closer. That kid in a chair has more courage than you ever will. And I'm not just a badge, I'm a father. And you lit the wrong man's ramp on fire. The next day was court hearing prep. But something odd happened. As we were walking out of the house, a black sedan pulled into the driveway across from ours. 2 men in suits got out, calm, clean, and definitely not neighbors. They approached. Mr. Henson? Yes. We're with Internal Affairs. We'd like to speak with you, off record. I raised a brow. Internal Affairs for what? One of them leaned closer. There's a possibility your HOA board, and Sable Creek, have had contacts within local city enforcement. Things may be deeper than you think. We'd like your cooperation. I looked at Lisa. Then at Billy, who watched from the window. You've got it. But just before the agents left, one handed me a slip of paper. Was a name. Walter Grant, senior partner at Sable Creek. He used to sit on state housing regulatory boards. Translation: he knew how to bend the rules and get away with it. That night I stood out on the porch. The new ramp was shining with solar lights, strong and safe. But the street was quiet. Too quiet. I felt it in my gut. Something was coming. A final push. Because when people like Karen and Sable Creek feel cornered, they don't beg. They strike. And I was ready. But I wasn't expecting what would happen next. At exactly 2:17 a.m., our power went out. A loud pop echoed from the back of the house. Then a second. And a third. Lisa screamed from upstairs. I grabbed my flashlight, ran to the hallway. Billy's bedroom window was shattered. Glass everywhere. And his bed was empty. Billy. My voice cracked through the darkness as I sprinted into his room, heart pounding, flashlight trembling in my grip. The cold wind rushed in through the shattered window, curtains flapping like flags in a storm. Glass crunched underfoot. But the bed? Empty. Lisa burst in behind me barefoot and sobbing. Where is he? Mark, where is he? And then I saw it. A tiny red light blinking beneath the dresser. His GPS tracker. I whipped out my phone, opened the app. He was still on the property. I zoomed in. He was in the garage. I bolted through the house, threw the garage door open. And there he was. Billy, curled beneath the workbench, clutching his stuffed Dalmatian, shivering and wide-eyed. I heard them, Dad. I heard voices outside. They broke the window. I didn't know what to do. I dropped to my knees and wrapped my arms around him. You did everything right, son. Everything. Lisa ran in behind me, wrapping all three of us in a hug. We stayed there on the cold concrete floor, shaking, until we heard the sirens. Detective Allen arrived in minutes, followed by 2 black SUVs and men in tactical gear. Federal agents. We traced the SUV from last week, he said. It belongs to a shell company owned by Sable Creek. Mark, they weren't just trying to scare you. They were going to take your son. Lisa gasped, covering her mouth. We got the green light, Allen continued. We're bringing down the entire operation, tonight. Within hours, search warrants were executed at multiple Sable Creek offices across the state. Walter Grant, the man behind it all, was arrested at his mansion in Boise mid-breakfast. And the cherry on top? Agents played Karen's final voicemail aloud in court. I did what you said. I lit it. I warned them. Now fix this. That was all the jury needed. Karen was sentenced to 12 years behind bars for arson, endangerment of a minor, and federal harassment. Walter Grant got 18 years for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted kidnapping. 3 HOA members were fined and banned from public leadership. 2 skipped town. 1 turned state witness. But none of that compared to what happened next. The new HOA board, now under real leadership, passed a neighborhood law called the Billy Clause. It guaranteed that no homeowner could ever be fined, bullied, or threatened for installing safety modifications to help disabled family members. The clause was picked up by other neighborhoods, then cities, then states. Billy's name became a symbol of strength. That summer, Billy rolled up and down his new ramp, solar-lit, reinforced with steel, lined with flower pots. One afternoon, while we sat on the porch sipping lemonade, he looked up and asked, Dad, are the bad guys gone? I looked down at him, smiling. For now. But even if more show up. I ruffled his hair. They'll learn what Karen learned. What's that? He grinned. You never mess with a fire inspector's son. And just like that, we were finally safe, finally home, and stronger than ever.